Everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Cabinet. I'm going to now turn to the agenda. So item 1, apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Amanda Chatterton. Item 2, urgent business. I've not had any notification of any urgent business. Item 3, declarations of interest. Does any member have any interest to declare in any item on this agenda? No? Okay, brilliant.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry, item 3, I'm founder of Homeless Friendly Charity. So.
Okay, thank you. Item 4, public question time. No public questions have been received. Item 5, minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 20th of September 2021. Does Cabinet agree the minutes as a correct record? Thank you. Item 6, homelessness prevention and reduction strategy. Councillor Roberts, over to you.
Goodness. Thank you very much, Chair. So this is an update of our homelessness prevention strategy. It's got a new name this time, the Prevention and Reduction Strategy, because of the new duties that we've had since the last strategy was developed under the Homeless Reduction Act. I think the key thread which runs through this strategy is the need for us to work in partnership. It's not something that we can deliver effectively together, and it's by ourselves, and it's particularly important that all parts of the council and all of our partner agencies understand and work effectively in terms of the reduction. We all know that prevention is better than cure, as the saying goes, and it's much better for us to have worked with households and families who are at the risk of becoming homeless to prevent that than it is for us to work with them to find them somewhere else to live. So that's kind of the key thrust of the policy, is to try to make sure that we're working in the most effective way possible. This strategy is underpinned by a examination of the data that about our homelessness, and there's a lot of interesting data in the report that accompanies the strategy, which shows that there's a continuing upward pressure on our services around the numbers of households becoming homeless. And this also relates to the next item in terms of the growing numbers of people we have in temporary accommodation, who we've accepted that we have a duty to house but have not yet been able to find a home for. We hope that the objectives which are set out in the report and building on the progress that we have already made in homelessness over the past few years. So just take a few moments, Chair, to say that the Bed for Every Night has been an extremely successful initiative that we've taken part in as part of Mayor Andy Burnham's drive to reduce rough sleeping. And that means that for the first time, supported by some government funding, we do have a rough sleeper support service which provides wraparound support to move people on and into better and more permanent accommodation. We've undertaken a pledge for Oldham care leavers up to the age of 25 that if they find themselves homeless, they will be considered automatically in priority need and not intentionally homeless. We've supported as a council initiatives such as Homeless Friendly and Real Change, to support the nature of the support and improve the services that homeless people receive, and to offer practical support for people who are experiencing homelessness. There is much more, though, for us still to do, and the key issues that are identified in the strategy are working around providing advice and information. As I've said earlier, early identification of people at the risk of becoming homeless and pre-crisis intervention. To work to prevent recurrent homelessness, we do have a number of households who've become homeless, been housed and become homeless again, and we need to understand why that happens and intervene to try to sustain the tenancies that people are in. And again, we need to strengthen our partnership arrangements, and the ways that we want to do that, this is set out in the strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Chauhan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to congratulate, it's a brilliant strategy, and sorry, have I said something wrong? Apologies. It's a brilliant strategy. I think I will start by congratulating this council, because we were one of the world's, not one of the world's, we were the first council in the world actually who took principal decision as a local authority to vaccinate homeless people during the COVID, when the whole world forgot about that most vulnerable group. But also before the COVID, we actually brought all the agencies, healthcare agencies together in this room actually, and said how we will provide the wraparound care. And our message is very clear that when we are commissioning the services, we're commissioning for all the populations and all the groups of our communities. And if that means that they have specific needs, those services need to work around based on those needs and provide that wraparound care. I agree with Councillor Roberts, there is much more to be done, but I'm proud to be a member of this council who led on some of the innovative work across the world.
Thank you, Dr. Chauhan. And I'll start by acknowledging that you were the cabinet member who led on the vaccinations for homelessness, people who are homeless. But more importantly, this is a really, really important item, and I think it's one of our most important responsibilities as a local authority to make sure our residents are safe and in an appropriate home. And it's no mean feat, it's a massive challenge, and actually you've demonstrated, Councillor Roberts, how serious you take that responsibility. So I want to thank you and your colleagues for working together and developing the strategy, but a big well done back to you and your team. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, then any other member? No. Item 7, temporary accommodation strategy. Councillor Roberts, is another one of yours? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I always do this. Like, how many times have I done cabinet? But yeah, let's formally agree it. So, do members agree? Thank you so much. Okay, item 7, temporary accommodation strategy. Councillor Roberts, another one of yours.
Thank you very much. So, as I said, these two reports do sit side by side and kind of assist each other. So this is our first temporary accommodation strategy, and it delivers a commitment that we made in the housing strategy that we adopted in 2019. We did find ourselves already in a position having to make some really rapid changes to the nature of our temporary accommodation at the beginning of lockdown. It was clearly unsuitable for people to be living in accommodation with shared facilities, and we made strenuous efforts to move people into much more suitable and COVID-secure accommodation. But nonetheless, we need to do more than that, because it's been clear that the numbers of people, households and individuals living in temporary accommodation is growing. The number referenced in the report is the latest data I have is that we now have 223 households in temporary accommodation, including people who are in our bed for every night provision. And unfortunately, the numbers of households who've been placed in bed and breakfast have been creeping up again. I mean, they're still much, much lower than they were prior to us having made the substantive changes that we've made. But nonetheless, the numbers are growing. And it's really unsatisfactory for a number of reasons, not least because sometimes people have to move around. But if you're in bed and breakfast, it kind of uproots you from your local community. It can be difficult for children to get to school and so on. So we do need to make every effort that we can to make sure that we provide something that's much more suitable for people's needs, especially if it's going to be a longer term issue. The strategy is supported by a delivery plan, and recommendation to set up a procurement framework to assist us with providing a higher quality of temporary accommodation. Our expectation is that the pressure on numbers in temporary accommodation will be sustained, partly because of the longer term impact of the pandemic, issues that there are that we all know about the impact of welfare reform, and particularly some of the decisions that have been made, particularly removing the £20 uplift for universal credit, which means that people's disposable incomes are much lower than they would otherwise be. And continual failure by this government to abolish Section 21 no-fault evictions, which continues to be one of the drivers for homelessness. And I have to say as well that one of the other impacts of the past 18 months has been a real reduction in the numbers of social homes that are available to let. In the last 18 months, it's been well under 20 a week most weeks. Actually, it was the lowest figure ever that we've had at the beginning of October. We just had 5 social homes that were to let. And you can see that if the supply is decreasing to that extent, and the pressures around people approaching our services and being eligible for support from the council, something has to give, and that something is that we have to place people in temporary accommodation, and they will be living in it for longer. So I'd ask you to support the strategy that we've drawn up to help us tackle this as a council.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Would any member wish to speak? No? Then can we agree to move the report? Agreed. Brilliant, thank you. So the next item is item 8, waste collection services. So I'm going to just pick this up because Councillor Chatterton can't be here today. So it's basically the waste management service are seeking approval to purchase 5 new waste collection vehicles. They'll replace the 5 old vehicles and allow the waste management service to maintain and appropriately manage its statutory duties around domestic and commercial waste collections. I've heard from Councillor Chatterton that going forward we will be looking at electric fleets, which will reduce our carbon footprint in line with our commitment to our green economy. Does any member wish to speak on this item? It's a pretty technical, straightforward one. No? Okay, so do we agree the recommendations of the report? Agreed. Brilliant, thank you. So that takes us on to item 9, which is exclusion of the press and public. But can I ask that the resolution is moved and seconded? Does Cabinet agree? Moved? Okay, that's the end of the public part of this meeting.